If you remember from part 1 of this series, I recounted some of the wonderful works of great British adult animation, and while they didn't quite make it towards the desired goals they wanted to achieve for animation fame, there were some truly great animated pieces that most now not remember. Why, in the first part of this series it consisted of a few of my very own personal selected favourites. But that was just the tip of the iceberg, as there's certainly a lot more unaccounted for adult British animations. And while some might not be on the pars with the likes of Monkey Dust or Pond Life, but they're still brilliant in their own way. Some of these are from my own private animation stash that I just couldn't fit in the first part. So join me today as I, the Blue Artisan, indulge you with more adult British animations. Spitting Image was a cultural smash hit TV phenomenon, breaking new grounds by becoming the first satirical show that mocked politicians and celebrities alike using puppets, and hit UK telly on ITV in the early 80s. Spitting Image ran well into the late 90s for a round total of 18 series, and like all good things, Spitting Image ran its course and eventually faded into the annals of satirical history. Yet the champion broadcaster for Spitting Image, ITV, would not want to stop at this legacy alone. The answer to continuing what they had started with Spitting Image is with what is still considered to be Spitting Image's true successor, 2D TV. 2D TV was the next step in the evolutionary cycle for satirical humour. It was in the beginning ages of the 2D flash animation era, where the medium of flash animation was flourishing, as well as easy for any fledgling animation studio to get a hold of. 2D TV, unlike Spitting Image, was centred around the time of an emerging Labour government.
Bored of this, I'm resigning. Take over, Gordon.
Oh, right. Absolutely. Now, look here.
I didn't say Tony says, Gordon.
Along with the lampooning of the Blair years, George Bush's tenure as president of our cousins in the US of A was just beginning, and he too was a prime target for mockery with a wealth of material to get many a jape from.
Good news, sir. Iraq seems to be cooperating fully with the UN inspectors. Looks like an all-out conflict can be avoided.
Oh, nuts!
Sir?
I want a war! I want a war! I want a war! All the other presidents have had wars!
Throughout this time period, 2D TV would combat the growing worry and fear of terrorism at the time. Why 2D TV was bold enough to use humour and satirise the villains of the time, like Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein. In those years, Blair and Bush were easy targets and most likely the main figureheads of 2D TV. After all, it was Bush and Blair that were constantly at the forefront of the news at the time.
So, now I'm going to reward you for your loyalty with a George Bush loyalty card. I've started you off with 150 points. You want to select a gift?
Well, you know, I'd really like a new Middle East peace initiative.
Let's see, shall we? Oh dear, I don't think you've got enough loyalty points for that peace thing.
Originally, the first 3 series of 2D TV only had a runtime of 10 minutes, but after an advertisement for the series using albeit fake celebrity endorsements from the likes of their favourite George W. Bush.
Favorite. Just pop it in the video player. The best of 2D TV on video and DVD.
Although with George W. Bush's questionable intelligence of the time, the adverts were banned, but then overruled by fair use, what with it being deemed satirical enough to be used as an advertisement for a show. Although it was due in part to this controversy that sparked the interest in the show, thus allowing it to gain traction for popularity, with the incident invoking more interest than what the advert had intended. Though by season 4, 2D TV had begun to wane, and though it had been given an extended 20-minute runtime, it just wasn't enough, as 2D TV was put into the late night graveyard slot, where the series suffered from
low ratings.
And this was the final death toll to end 2D TV's 5-series span. Popetown lives on in infamy for being the first adult British animation to not even air on its desired network that it was commissioned for, that being BBC 3. Yes, Popetown was indeed banned before it was even allowed to broadcast its very first episode. Why is that? Well, it's because of religious reasons, of course. Popetown was a religiously satirical themed British adult animation, and it described itself as something like Father Ted meets South Park, though I'd call that a bit of a stretch myself. Pope Town is based on a world created by a schoolboy's doodling in his notebook. In this imagined Vatican, it's the main character Father Nicholas's duty to look after the Pope, who himself is a child-minded idiot, prone to tantrums, and behaves like a spoilt brat.
Happy birthday, Your Holiness.
Is it a crossbow?
Well, no,
Pow! Oh!
Happy birthday, Your Holiness.
Clappy Pow!
Father Nicholas must then make sure that the Pope's misbehaviours never get out to the public media, thus making the Pope and the Vatican's respected and trusted image remain intact. With Father Nicholas running around trying to look after the Pope as crazy hijinks ensue.
Having the Invincible makes milkshake! Yeah! How are you feeling now, pal? It's Ox, actually! Nicholas the Ox!
Whilst Nicholas is running around after the Pope, you also have the cardinals in the background, lounging around and trying to make money and profit off religion behind the Pope's back. As I mentioned earlier, Pope Town holds the distinction of being the one British animation series that was banned. It was dropped from the night of being broadcast on BBC Three, the very station it was commissioned for. What with the Pope being seen as a child-minded idiot, going around doing silly antics, and of course, as they described the cardinals earlier, being sinful and greedy with money, well, the Catholic Church didn't take it quite so well, did they? So quite a few religious people belonging to the Catholic Church found it quite offensive. Though personally I find the storytelling and animation style of the show quite offensive myself. Pope Town's dull on the eyes, the characters don't really appeal to me, and the writing's okay, nothing really made me laugh. Aside from that, the only interesting thing about Pope Town is the fact that it was banned for religious reasons. It had Ruby Wax as the Pope though. That's kinda the only good thing going for it.
I am the Pope, and I'm never afraid. And just because I'm afraid doesn't mean I'm afraid, I think.
But it's not horrible or offensive or gruesome or grotesque to sit through. It's just boring and just a waste of time, really. It did make its way to DVD for its full series run, so you can still watch the first season, I guess, if you didn't have anything else better to do. On to something a bit more interesting now. It's Bromwell High, a Swedo-British-Canadian animated series set in the fictional school of Bromwell in East London. Bromwell High was co-produced between Hat Trick Productions on the UK side and Decode Entertainment on the Canadian side. It was broadcast on Channel 4 in the UK and Teletoon in Canada. Bromwell High was based on the goings-on of its trio of main characters, Latrina, Keisha and Natalie, and their misbehaviours at school. Of course you have the supporting cast of characters like the teachers of the school, who are just as irresponsible and badly behaved as the show's main trio, like the school headmaster Iqbal, who's always on the look to make a quick quid with the latest money-making scheme.
But I could have sworn you opted out of the subsidies game.
I did.
So what changed your mind?
I told you, a big bag of money.
You know, that old chestnut. And again, unlike Pope Town, Bromwell High was quite well written, getting quite a few laughs out of me here and there.
Oh, what's going on?
A girl's been rescued from a burning bus, and someone shat on your car.
Oh, it's not my car. I found it in lost property.
And the characters are pretty likeable as well, although admittedly Latrina's voice does get a bit grating on my nerves.
Oh, I know. No one else is crying, but she's crying.
Very, very good, Latrina. Okay, Carly, you can sit down now.
Though, as in regards to how well Bromwell High is animated, you can tell that the characters are indeed on a rig, and as much as I like the characters that star in Bromwell, they are limited to very few facial expressions, if not any at all. Sure, the characters may raise an eyebrow here or there, but there's nothing really that emotes a lot of expression from our main characters. As well written and enjoyable as Bromwell High was, unfortunately it didn't gain enough traction, and only aired for one season. And sadly, Bromwell High didn't end on a high.
I don't get it. You is fired.
I know what you're thinking, punks. You're thinking, has he got the bollocks to do this?
A much lesser family-friendly production from Aardman, it's Angry Kid.
What are you trying to do? You just don't know when to stop, do you?
Angry Kid is like a small chronology of a lower working class child struggling for attention, using the crudest and what can be best described adolescent humour to its advantage. Angry Kid stars, you guessed it, Angry Kid. He's never really given a full name in the series. Angry Kid was a 2 to 3 minute long episodic series, starring the titular, foul-mouthed and ADHD ginger crusty-looking the clown offspring, Angry Kid.
Bugger.
Angry Kid's short 2-minute episodes would centre around Angry Kid, well, being an arsehole to his dad or family members and friends. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that this series is a stop-motion affair. It's not. I mean, it is made by Aardman Animations, which are renowned for stop-motion, but Angry Kid, although it looks like a stop-motion series, it's actually not. Angry Kid is instead a mix between stop-motion and live-action, and together this forms a new animated medium called pixelation. You may have seen it before, it's quite a rare animated art form. You see, there's an elaborate set built up around the actor who is performing Angry Kid, and this set is designed to create the look and feel of a stop-motion background, so as it fits in with the visual aesthetics of the almost stop-motion-like look of the rubber mask that the performer is wearing.
You want some? Hey?
Thusly using the principles of stop-motion frame by frame with live-action performers. Voila! Pixelation. Using this technique, Angry Kid certainly sets itself apart from other adult animations. Angry Kid was probably the most bizarre thing to come out of Aardman Studios. It's rude, it's vulgar, Angry Kid himself is quite nasty, a really horrible little child, but I kinda like him. Angry Kid ran for about 2 seasons and had I would say an Angry Kid movie that ran for 20 minutes that delved into the idea of who Angry Kid is as a person, and you get a bit of backstory about his family that is pretty sad actually. Then for a few years Angry Kid faded out of existence, with just its memory being on DVD. Until in 2015, Angry Kid was picked up and renewed for an online exclusive series for YouTube. And while the original performers and the actors have all returned and the humour is still pretty much the same, Angry Kid himself just looks really weird and even creepier in HD. It looks too clean and upscaled and doesn't fit the dirty Angry Kid aesthetics that brings Angry Kid's world to grimy life. Angry Kid is an overall great adult British animation from Aardman Studios. I would heartily recommend it, if you can stomach it, that is. You might find yourself rooting for the long-suffering father of Angry Kid. Now for an actual stop-motion animated series that's rude and crude but not as bad as Crackston Villas, but still full of dirty toilet humour, it's The Gogs. Gogs is based on a prehistoric family, not quite like the Flintstones. A modern Stone Age family, the Gogs ain't. Gogs is full of snot and farting humour, and it was always intended to be this rude and naughty series, as its creators, Daniel Morris, Michael Moore and Sion Jones, didn't want it to be put in the same criteria as family-friendly clay animations like lovable Wallace and Gromit. And it does indeed break the mould in that regards. Starring Ma Gog and Pa Gog, as well as Grandpa Gog and Brother Gog, and Baby Gog too. Oh, and not forgetting long-haired Gog, who was the creative one of the bunch. While not totally awful and offensive, I did quite enjoy the Gogs. I found it a little bit more disgusting to watch compared to Angry Kid. Maybe that's because I find snot jokes a little bit too disgusting in my taste, and that's one thing I draw the line at. Gogs may look like an Aardman animation, but it is in fact produced by a different animation studio going by the name of R Animations that unfortunately disbanded in the early 2000s. Their specialty, in case you can't tell, was in plasticine animation. Gogs started out on Welsh telly in 1993, as its creators were Welsh, and then the BBC ran Gogs in full in the UK in the late 90s. It ran for 2 series and had 13 episodes. There is of course Gogwana, the made-for-TV special, that ran for 30 minutes. What I love about Gogs is how it looks like an earnest production for a really naughty programme. Gogwana was a great watch, and aside from the snot jokes, I really liked it. It was a fitting finale to the series, and is indeed a fine, disgusting example of great British adult animation. venturing back into the 2D realm now with the the Mr. Hell Show, an early 2D flash animated series for British telly. So I can't really criticise it too much because it was one of the first of its kind in its genre, although you can tell it looks incredibly dated now in terms of its visual appearance. I mean, just look at it, it kinda looks all clip-arty. And again, it can't take all the credit for it being a British adult animated toon, because it was also part Canadian as well, much like Bromwell High. It was aired on BBC Two from October 2001 to February 2002. It starred the devil himself, voiced by the late great Bob Monkhouse, who surprisingly makes a really good devil.
Animation. It's brought joy to the hearts of millions, and millions to the pockets of a few.
Will you shut up? We can't hear the film!
Other recurring characters include Josh, who is voiced by Jeff Swampy Marsh of Phineas and Ferb fame. How's that for a fun animation fact, eh?
My name's Josh, and I'd like to talk to you about reincarnation. You know, it's amazing how...
Josh would try to enable a discussion about the joys of reincarnation before it all goes horribly wrong. This would be one of the many running gags of the Mr. Hell Show. Also, there was the cute and lovable Serge, the fashion industry seal of death, who every episode would want to take revenge on the fashion industry for the murder of his parents.
Serge the little seal cub, you best beware his wrath. He's furry and he's funny and a psychopath.
Each episode of the Mr. Hell Show was based on a certain theme and had random sketches sewn into it. The Mr. Hell Show was an okay series. It was mediocre at best. It had its funny moments for sure, but nothing that was like gut-punchingly funny. I did find the animation special episode to be the best of the bunch.
You know, there are many great names in the Animation Hall of Fame. Chuck, Tex, and of course, Walt.
And while yes, it did suffer from the curse of
low ratings,
and alas, the Mr. Hell Show never made it for another series. I will say this though, that Mr. Hell Show has a damn catchy theme tune. Biz Comics is a long-running publication that's a little like an adult version of the Beano, that being akin to your daily comic strips for you folks across the pond. Much like the Beano, it had its own series of cartoon regulars that was for more mature audiences. They had characters like Sid the Sexist, Roger Melly, the guy off the telly, and of course, the Fat Slags.
I didn't know you were interested in history, Sam.
I'm not. I couldn't give a fuck about all them broken pots. Well, like that bloke off it.
Viz would venture into the animation world with 2 attempts. The first attempt I'll get into in the next part of this documentary. So let me introduce you to Biz Comedy Blaps. This was a magazine-like format that consisted of 3 episodes that ran for 10 minutes in length. Each episode had little cartoon sketches and was hosted by one of the Viz regulars.
Oh, Cedric, smell me floor. Oh, how beautiful.
Hey!
Viz Comedy Blaps animated segments were very clean, and they were indeed Flash animated as well, but around this time they seem to have gotten the hang of how to animate properly in Flash and making it look different and unique and not oversaturated in its style like Popetown and the Mr. Hell Show. Viz Comedy Blaps was commissioned for Channel 4 and was broadcast in 2011. It was short-lived however, as it only ever made it to 3 episodes. I personally really liked the magazine style format and found great hilarious pleasure in the crap joke section.
It's crap joke.
With the wealth of material that Viz Media has under its belt, it could easily have gone on and made a lot more episodes. I would have liked to have seen it go further, but alas, it just wasn't meant to be. Continuing what Viz had started with its magazine-like format for adult animation, Modern Toss was the next to take on this genre.
Village Flower Berries, eh? Fuck off.
Modern Toss was a hybrid show that not only showcased animations, but also mixed animation with live action as well.
Keys in a letterbox.
The makers of Modern Toss would also create a breakaway character called Business Mouse, who was made for Channel 4's Comedy Blaps.
Business Mouse, yeah?
Business Mouse was an Alan Sugar-like take on Michael Mouse. His exploits would usually involve investing in really random things that you could not possibly make a profit from.
Welcome to Impulse Investments.
Alright, I want to start up a theme park.
I'm liking the sound of it. What rides you got?
I ain't got any.
Well, I'll tell you what. You got balls coming in here without an idea to wipe your arse on.
The ill-thought-out investments of Business Mouse would then, of course, result in failure.
Going on with this theme park shit?
Down here now? Whole place is told as far as the eye can see.
Fuck off, old Martin.
Through strange twists of fate, Business Mouse Investments suddenly pulls through by means of bizarre comedic circumstances.
Yeah, turns out you're now the proud owner of the #1 destination for indoor and outdoor tile stroke flooring shit in the North European territories.
Nice work, Martin. Really pulled it out of the bag there.
Business Mouse is a hilariously original cartoon, and I wish it would be picked up for its own series.
I'm Business Mouse, yeah, and I'm on top of the world!
Modern Toss.
Returning to the Modern Toss TV series, there were plenty of other breakaway characters that made Modern Toss hilarious to watch. Probably the most popular of the lot is Alan, the psychopathic deranged doodle of a character that made everyone's life a living hell. There was no real rhyme or reason to Alan's behaviour, he just enjoyed revelling in chaos that he had indeed caused. And each of his segments would end with the signature catchphrase of Following Alan, there was also Mr. Tourette's, the French-speaking Tourette's man that would make some very naughty signs. And while obscene as these signs he creates are, they do indeed get the job done in terms of great advertisement. There's great comedic anticipation in waiting to see what will happen with Mr. Tourette's naughty signs.
Mon ami, pas la bourrade pour le car, hein? Mon ami, pas la rôdeau du Chauvelin, pas la voiture. Oh, mon ami, pas la bonjour pour le vaisseau le perron.
Barney. Barney was a comic strip about a gentleman who would transform into an angry Hulk from mild annoyances and inconveniences. The space argument segments was something that really gave me a chuckle. Just watching the simple scribble of these characters arse around in space is just a joy to watch. As wittingly written and funny as Modern Toss was, unfortunately it never got past more than 2 series, but you can always indulge yourself by checking out a few Modern Toss compilations on YouTube. And sadly, Modern Toss marked the end of the last decent adult British animated series.
See ya!
Modern Toss. Catch you later, yeah?
Hi, and thanks for watching the second part of my 3-part documentary series on adult British animations. Join me in part 3, where we will cover the really awful ones. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification to see when it goes live, and for future updates and new videos too. Don't forget to like the video if you found it enjoyable, and like and share and all that jazz, blah blah blah. I'll also leave a link to my Twitter and Facebook pages below so you can keep up to date with all my latest news and updates too, and my social musings as well. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Until then, I'll see you next time. Take care.